How to find the right niche influence leaders on Twitter. At this point, it should be fairly clear that you need to follow the right people on Twitter. Otherwise, the tips I've shared with you will not work. If you're just going to follow random people on Twitter, you don't know who you're influencing. In fact, you don't even know if you're influencing them at all. You have to understand that on Twitter, some people generally follow a general rule. If you follow me, I follow you. Nowhere in this does it say they're actually interested in what you have to say. That's a big problem. If you attract the wrong following, you're not going to get many results from Twitter marketing. In fact, the results you get would be the same as if you did not do Twitter marketing at all. That's a waste of time. You need to find real people. You also need to find real influential people. This isn't bad enough. You need to find real influential people in your niche. How do you do this? Here's my step-by-step guide. Pay attention to their biography. Look at their bio. Is it on point? Does it indicate the persona of a person who is truly interested in your niche? This is crucial. If there are no niche-related keywords there, or it's not obvious that this person is part of your target demographic, and it's not some sort of passionate or credible enough authority in your niche, then this is probably the wrong person. You may be barking up the wrong tree. Look at their follower-to-following ratio. This ratio is simple. Look at the number of people this person follows and look at the number of people following this person. If this person's followers greatly outnumber the accounts this person is following, chances are this is a real account. It is not some bot that is fully automated. Instead, this person actually has influence because for how many people he or she is following, he is followed by hundreds, if not thousands of more people. This is very important. If it turns out that the number of people following this person is pretty much the same as the number of persons he is following, it's probably not a good idea to follow that person. This person is probably just using some sort of software to take advantage of the fact that when you follow people, they follow you back. Some of them follow you back. Pay attention to their level of engagement. Look at the stuff that they talk about. Pay attention to their tweets. What do they constantly retweet? What do they tweet about? Are they talking about the same stuff most of the time? Does their account get a lot of retweets and posts, retweets and engagements? Do they get a lot of favorites? Is there a lot of engagement with the content they share? Even if this person is totally focused on your niche, but it turns out that their tweets don't get much engagement, they may not be all that influential. Becoming credible with them and getting access to their market may not work out for you. Their audience may not work out for you because they're not really authorities. Pay attention to the specificity of their posts. Look at their posts. Here's a rule of thumb. If 80% or more of their posts have something to do with your niche, follow them. Follow them if all the other points I raised above apply. But if it turns out that this person's bio is on point, it has more followers than the accounts that he or she is following, it has a high engagement level, but this person focuses on generalized content, this person may be a dud. In other words, this person is some sort of Twitter celebrity. This person is only an authority because of their personality and not much else. They're not an authority because they focus on a niche. They're not an authority because they are truly passionate about a niche. People only follow them because they think their personality is interesting. So, what you get is some sort of individual celebrity market. That's not what you're looking for. You're looking for a niche audience. Follow and engage. So, what do you do when you find a niche-specific and truly authoritative account on Twitter? First of all, they have to meet all the criteria listed in video 5. Assuming they pass with flying colors, you follow them. Don't stop there. This is just the beginning. Once you follow them, you engage. Now, a lot of people have all sorts of misconceptions regarding what engagement means. Some people think that if they just click the heart button that they are engaging. They think that if they retweet that they are engaging. No, it goes beyond that. You actually have to engage in a one-to-one conversation with the person tweeting. You click the reply button. I'm not talking about the direct message button. I'm talking about the reply button. Here's where it gets a little tricky. You can't just use a stock answer like, hey, good post, or you're a genius. I admire you. I love you. No, that doesn't work. Those are worthless. Why? And true authorities get those all the time. They're credible. They know what they're talking about. So they get a lot of, hey, good post. You're a smart guy. You're a genius. So what? They get those all the time. You're not going to stand out. Remember, the whole point of engagement is to get on their radar. You want them to notice you. This is all but impossible if you're doing the exact same thing everybody else is doing. Everybody thinks that they're a genius already. Yet another guy piping up and saying the same thing is not going to register. How do you truly engage? Here's what I do. I ask questions. I know that sounds basic, right? But you have to ask the right question. You have to ask a question that indicates to the person loud and clear that you've read their post. Maybe you click through the link that they shared. Maybe you analyze their tweet. Whatever the case may be, your question must communicate this. Your question must get them to think or analyze or look at things with a new perspective. When you do that, you get respect. Why? You're pushing them. You're challenging them. You're not just asking a throwaway question that they already know the answer to. You're not asking something that they've answered 100 times before. You're basically letting them earn a chance to prove why people think they're experts. Most mature adults respect this. They're not scared by this. They're not threatened by this in any way. Even if you do come across somebody who has a thin skin or views this as an attack, you still gain authority and credibility because other experts are following that person. When they see that engagement, they quickly see that you actually have a working brain. Imagine that. You're not just a blind follower. You're not just another face in the crowd. This makes you stand out, even if the expert that you are asking questions to reacts in a negative way. It's on them. It's not on you because you're just asking a question. Of course, you have to ask in a respectful way. You cannot use loaded questions like, when did you stop beating your wife? Or how was it the first time you got hooked on drugs? You see where I'm coming from? Don't ask those types of questions. Discuss controversial points. Another way to get on people's radars is to focus on controversy. Now please, don't mistake this for being a troll. I'm not saying that you're going to create artificial controversies. I'm not talking about stoking divisive issues. I'm not talking about any of that. You see, in any kind of subject, there will always be two sides. This applies to niche subjects as well. There's always the conventional wisdom, and then there is everything else. What if there are techniques or approaches or strategies that would get better results? For some reason or other, these are just not talked about. For some reason or other, these are kept under the rug. When you discuss these or raise these with experts, this highlights that you, yourself, are an expert. After all, if you fully explain these or fully describe these accurately, you are basically lecturing in an underhanded way people who are reading your tweets. You're letting them know of something that they may not have heard about. You are hinting at a body of knowledge that either they're trying to run away from or they may have an unclear understanding of. The fact that you tease this information communicates to them in a clear way that you are some sort of expert. Let's put it this way. You stand out from the crowd, and you're not just this random person saying, hey, good post, or you're a genius, or what do you think about this topic which has been raised millions of times before? Whatever you do, focus on real engagement. This is the bottom line. Real engagement means real person-to-person contact. This means picking somebody's brain. This means sharing information on a real profound personal level. This may not be always comfortable. It definitely is not always convenient, but it's absolutely necessary. You have to reach out. You have to engage. You have to communicate. You have to get the point across. This doesn't mean that you have to always be 100% in agreement. However, it means that you do have to always be 100% respectful. I know this is hard to do if the person you are engaging would feel threatened or get soft on you in the worst way. It's very tempting to fight back. It's very tempting to push back. Fight fire with fire, right? Well, here's the thing. If they act in a very unprofessional way and you keep your cool, who wins? Your brand wins. People start seeing you as an authority. People start seeing you as an alternative. This is how you get on the radar. Either things work smoothly and they agree with you and will love to help you, or things don't work out. When things don't work out, you can still win. How? Through your professionalism. You just have to control your emotions. Twitter is notorious for flame wars, troll attacks, and all sorts of hassles. But if you're able to keep your head together and focus on what you're trying to accomplish, things will work out for the best. What happens when you reach high engagement levels? A lot of people who are getting on Twitter measure their success based on three things. One, according to one school, you measure your success based on how much raw traffic you can pull from Twitter. Ultimately, this is the right answer because, at the end of the day, you need traffic to get conversions. There's no way around this fact. You can talk a big game about branding. You can talk a good game about becoming an authority. This is all well and good, but until and unless they translate to real traffic, you're not going to make money. You have to get real visitors to make money on the internet. But using this metric as your sole metric is going to be a problem. Why? Normally, you have to build a very high level of engagement and high level of authority for you to get a sizable volume of direct traffic from Twitter. The good news is that the traffic that you do tend to get would be qualified traffic. These are people who are not curiosity seekers. These are people who have nothing else better to do than to click random links. These are usually people who are interested in whatever it is you are saying, and by extension, whatever it is you are promoting. Another way to measure success on Twitter is the number of retweets you get. Again, this is good because it ultimately leads to traffic. However, in itself, it doesn't really lead to much. The same applies to people clicking the heart button that they like your stuff. They favorite your stuff. That is all good. It definitely is a great boost to the ego. But until it translates to traffic, it's really not worth much. Here's my answer. The obvious answer, of course, is traffic. But before we get to traffic, focus on engagement level. Try to get your engagement levels up. This means people are paying attention. This means people view you as an actual credible and authoritative expert. This means influence. If you have high engagement levels, a lot of things open up for you. These are tremendous opportunities that can take your business to the next level. First, you can pitch influential Twitter accounts for guest posts. If you get a lot of engagement from their accounts and then they're constantly retweeting you and constantly clicking the heart icon, and it means that they become your fans, this is an indication that there is an actual organic community that grew up around your content. This is a good thing, but just by itself, it doesn't really mean much. You have to convert it. You have to transform it into a usable form in one of the most useful forms of this. Usual payouts of this level of influence with influencers are to pitch them for guest posts. Now, of course, this means that they have to have a blog that's credible and has great SEO value in their niche. But assuming that's true, pitch them for guest posts. Don't be shy. It doesn't hurt to ask if they say no the first time. Continue to engage with them. Be a buddy. Challenge them. Test them. Earn their respect some more, and then pitch them again. Keep pitching until you get that guest post. Because sometimes you have to knock many times before the door opens. That's just the way things are. Keep pitching because for every single guest post you get, you may get a nice boost in Google search results. You probably don't need me to explain to you why that's a good thing. Ask for interviews. There are many influential people on Twitter that are either top dogs in organizations in your niche or they know people. Either way, when you get interviewed for a variety of reasons, you have arrived in your niche. Let's put it this way. They're not going to interview worthless people. They're not going to interview people who have no credibility. Why? Well, they respect their own credibility. They want to protect whatever status they have. One of the worst ways to do that is to interview people with no credibility. They want to build up. So, the fact that they're interviewing you signals to whoever respects them that you are worthy of respect. It signals to people that you are credible, that you are worth following. It tells people in so many ways what you have to say counts for something. This is a big deal. How come? You can leverage this interview that you've got as proof of your expert status. You can then contact influential publications in your niche to get backlinks. You can contact the networking groups, symposiums, and conventions to get speaking opportunities. You can always point to the fact that you got interviewed by these highly credible places. Another advantage you can get when you put in the time to manually engage with truly influential people involves blogging roundtables. Blogging roundtables are basically group interviews. The person holding the roundtable would come up with a general topic. For example, they're talking about general SEO trends in 2018, and then hit up a large number of people for their interviews, knowing full well only a small fraction would respond. If you get invited to turn in your feedback, you get a nice link. Imagine if the Blogger Roundtable was being held on the premier website in your niche. Again, it doesn't take a genius to figure out the dynamite SEO potential of this opportunity. Build a high-influence retweet circle. This final benefit escapes a lot of marketers. In fact, even Twitter marketers may be completely blind to this. This is one of the biggest benefits of manual engagement with influential people on Twitter can ever deliver. When you get these people to think that you are credible and that you are an expert in your own right. Eventually, you can count on some of them to automatically retweet your stuff. This is a big deal. Well, when you share your own content, or better yet, when you share your squeeze page direct link, you want truly interested people to click through. You want people who understand what your content is about to click through and possibly convert. In other words, you want highly qualified traffic. If your brand becomes so trusted and so credible in your niche among other Twitter users, you cultivate such a following. You only need to produce content and automatically you know they would retweet you. You can almost bet that a certain percentage of your followers would retweet. This can then lead to your content being seen by more of their followers, which can lead to highly qualified direct traffic. Don't neglect this benefit. Unfortunately, a lot of people do because this benefit grows very slowly. It also starts at a very low level. But of all the benefits, this is probably the most potent. Unfortunately, it also takes the most time, effort, and attention to detail. However, if you properly cultivate this, the direct traffic benefits and conversions you would get from being a part of a retweet circle will outweigh and will pay for all your costs. You can take this to the bank. Always optimize your content. It's really important to make sure that you identify your best performing content. This is not easy to do with Twitter. You basically have to pay attention to your website statistics and figure out which content update gets the most love from your followers. Once you have identified your best performing content, don't stop there. Don't just think that you're just going to have to come up with the exact same content. That's not going to cut it. Also, don't think that you only need to give your system a few days for you to identify your winning content. Here's the system that I use. Regardless of whether you are completely automating your system or you're manually doing engagements, you need to do the following as far as content optimization goes on Twitter. Step 1. Start with randomly selected content. Now, please understand that this content must be top content. Look at the reverse engineering section that I mentioned earlier in this training. You should know how to spot objectively good content. Once you're able to do that, create a massive list of all that type of content and then randomly select this content and publish it on your Twitter feed. Again, you can use Hootsuite or Social Oomph or some other content scheduling software. Let this piece of content run until a few weeks pass. Step 2. Review your results. If you give the system enough time to tweet and keep republishing stuff that you have tweeted before, certain patterns should emerge. With enough time, you will get rid of false positives. These are content types or themes that you think are winners. It turns out that they're statistical flukes. Their success, statistically speaking, is just coincidental. With a few weeks, however, of running time, you should get a clear understanding of which of your content are real winners. Step 3. Focus on what works. At this stage, you should have a clear understanding of what truly works. These tweets are no joke. If you tweet this type of content, you can rest assured you will get quite a bit of engagement and click-through from your Twitter feed. You need to create more of this type of content. If you don't have the time or resources to do that, you should find other third-party content that is just like your winning content. Focus on what works. Scale it up. Pair it with your squeeze page tweets. Pair it with your content that leads to ads or other conversion devices on your website. Whatever the case may be, you need to focus on what works and scale up once you've identified reliably productive content. Again, this takes time. This is not something that you identify overnight. You have to let the patterns play out. You need to let the statistical flow of your traffic even out over a long enough period of time. If you do this right, you will be able to shift your Twitter feed towards content that has a predictable level of engagement. This paves the way for the success of your Twitter campaign. Cross-feed your content among platforms. If you notice that you have winning content on Twitter, don't just leave it at Twitter. There's a good chance that people on other platforms would appreciate that same content. Take that content and share it on Pinterest or Instagram. If you are sharing third-party videos and they do really well on Twitter, share them on your YouTube channel. Whatever the case may be, cross-feed or cross-pollinate your content among different social media platforms. There's a lot to choose from. There's Pinterest, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Reddit, and Quora, among many others. Mix and match. Pick your very best content. Try along different platforms and identify what works. Once you identify that a particular type of content that you tweet also does well on another platform, publish more of that stuff. Scale it up. Leverage the power of questions. One of the best ways to publish content on Twitter is to ask questions. It's really that simple. You ask a question and then you post a link and then some hashtags. The great thing about this question-based tweeting is you get to engage the reader. You focus on a specific point that they may be interested in. If they are, you're more likely to get the click. This is definitely more engaging because you start with a specific need that they have. You're not just wasting people's time by saying, hey, this might be interesting. Who cares? There's tons of interesting stuff on Twitter. People simply do not have the time to consume all that information. One of the best descriptions I have read about Twitter is that it's like drinking from a fire hydrant. There's just so much information to process in a very short period of time. This is why most people who consume a lot of social media content don't bother to read. They really don't. They don't have that luxury. Instead, they scan by tweeting in the form of questions followed up by a link and some hashtags. You take advantage of this fact, people only need to see the right question, and then you have yourself a click. It fits how people think about and process information on Twitter. Interestingly enough, a lot of marketing professionals are saying that this also creates some sort of SEO signal. This is a big deal because it can give you a search engine optimization benefit. Now, please understand that this benefit is very marginal. In fact, spokespeople for Google have spoken up on this issue. For the most part, they said this type of social signal isn't really factored in by Google. However, a lot of professional search engine optimization consultants say that there is an indirect or circumstantial benefit. Whatever the truth may be, we could all agree that if there is a signal that is being factored in by Google, it's going to be a very weak factor. Still, it is a factor. So you raise the question-based format. Use your questions for Quora. Not only do you get to engage your Twitter followers more directly by using questions, you can recycle this resource by posting it on Quora. You're killing two birds with one stone. You are posing a question on Twitter, and then it's copying and pasting that question and posting it on Quora and then posting an answer, or you can look for a similar question that already exists on Quora and answer with basically the link that you are promoting through Twitter. You save on time. You definitely save on effort. Twitter marketing best practices. The first 9 videos of this training step you through the process of Twitter marketing. Whether you're going the fully automated route or you're doing things by hand, you have to use certain best practices. Otherwise, it's too easy for your Twitter marketing campaign to simply fall apart. The vast majority of people who try their hand at Twitter marketing simply do not succeed. It's not because these people are dumb. It's not because these people are hopeless in terms of execution. They just did not have a plan. They also did not follow certain best practices that would have increased their chances of success. Here are just some best practices that I've learned marketing successfully on Twitter for several years. Element by element optimization. When you're optimizing content on Twitter, it's a good idea to focus on one element at a time. What is an element? Well, it's just part of a tweet. It could be the question. It could be the link. It could be the hashtag. When you're optimizing for the highest amount of engagement and click-through, you have to change your tweet section by section. You can't just change them dramatically overnight because even if you do get some sort of improvement, you don't know which part accounts for that improvement. You're completely in the dark. On the other hand, if you optimize element by element, you can clearly identify which part you changed and reasonably conclude that this accounts for the improvement. Once you're no longer getting a nice improvement or you peaked with a particular element, then you switch to the next element. With Twitter, this is pretty straightforward. You play around with many different question variations until you get one that gets clicked a lot. Next, you swap out different hashtags until you get something that gets clicked a lot. It seems pretty simple, but it's something that takes place over an extended period of time. It's not something that happens overnight. You just have to pay attention to the trend. That's traffic statistics so you can make the necessary adjustments. Tweet timing optimization. Depending on your time zone, it may well turn out that a lot of your most active followers prefer early morning or late at night. Pay attention to your statistics. Maybe you're using Google Analytics. Maybe you're using StatCounter. It really doesn't matter. Pay attention to the time of the clicks coming in. You see a pattern. If you do, use your tweet scheduling software to mirror the most active times or the most popular time frame of your content. This is the time range where most people click on your links on Twitter. Make your decisions based on statistics. A lot of brilliant online marketers fail in the Twitter marketing game because they go with their gut. They tell me, I just know it feels right. Alternatively, they tell me that their gut is telling them something. 9 times out of 10, these people fail. Again, they're not dumb. They're not stupid. Instead, they base their decision on feelings. Unfortunately, in this game, feelings can only take you so far. In fact, hunches often lead to dead ends. If you're going to be making a decision involving your content, your conversion pages, your mailing list, or whatnot, pay attention to statistics. Make sure you can justify whatever changes you make with hard numbers.